Hello, and welcome to another edition of No Last Paranormal Podcast, where three nerdy paranormal investigators sit down and discuss spooky stories from the web. My name is Joe. I'm the lead investigator.
My name is Teresa. I am a researcher.
Namoy, I am your Bigfoot hunting, changeling, Celtic, pagan, druid, Baba Yaga enthusiast, equipment setter upper, Alex.
Wow.
I warned you.
That's not Jon Snow, man. That's Daenerys.
You know his shirt with all the titles? Like, I'm going for that eventually.
And then we have the most awesome special guest of all special guests. Ken, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, I am Ken Summers. I'm a paranormal investigator, writer, researcher, you name it. I've been doing this since 15 or 16, and I'm going to be 45 here in a few more weeks, so it's been a while. I started off just researching the Cuyahoga Valley and all of that, and a lot of local legends, and then branched out, and now my area of expertise is basically the intersection of sexuality and supernatural. So I had written about the local stories in the valley years and years ago, and then I had a book called Queer Hauntings, True Tales of Gay and Lesbian Ghosts back in 2009, and then just last year I finally released Weirdly Queer, which is a comprehensive history of anything LGBTQ to deal with every aspect of the paranormal, from witchcraft to psychics to ghosts, Bigfoot, you name it. So sort of a little bit of a interesting niche that I have, but I like anything paranormal.
And I would also like to add to that Ken also happens to be the one that we credit as being sort of like paranormal mentors. When we first started investigating, it was moonspenders. How did you start moonspenders?
Well, to show my age, it started out as a hometown AOL website where I was just compiling local stories that I stumbled across. And then I decided to branch out, and I figured, let's try a paranormal group. So I went out with a few different groups, joined a few different groups, and decided, well, maybe I'll start my own.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, like usual, that doesn't always go so well. So it kind of fell apart, and I just let it die a slow, painful death. Just went on from there, and I've been kind of doing my own thing since then, spending too much time researching and not enough time actually having to feel anymore.
I feel it.
Listen, don't you threaten me with the GeoCities and Angel Fire good time, all right?
Yes, I think we were all in the same exact space at the same exact time, since we're all very close to the same age. Goodness. So today is actually the Cuyahoga Valley National Park that we wanted to focus on. I promised you guys that there were going to be 100 million throughout this place, and today we finally decided that we're going to talk about a few of them.
Pull the trigger.
Well, obviously, it's going to be a very, very thick episode, and if we talked about every single bit of it, it would take like a friggin' day. So we'll narrow it to maybe an hour and a half or something. But yeah.
Which one?
I think the focus is definitely a certain portion of the Cuyahoga Valley, although it is kind of all-encompassing, and I think that Ken can verify that the place that we're talking about in the Cuyahoga Valley, to be more specific, Indigo Lake, is kind of the central valley. Like, there's Beaver Marsh on the other side, there is Deep Lock on the other side, Lonesome Lock, which is kind of right smack dab in the middle.
Over a bridge, yeah.
Yeah, I would say technically it's in the southern part of the valley, but it's in the thick of the main part of the valley. It's toward the center.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
For those of you who are not familiar, it is the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. So it is a Federal Reserve National Park. The rural landscape runs straight along the Cuyahoga River between Akron and Cleveland. So it encompasses a huge portion of Northeast Ohio. And when I say huge, I'm talking 32,500 acres. It's
It's a big park.
absolutely the most beautiful place in the world. And it was actually originally designated as a national recreation area back in 1974.
And to be fair, so that doesn't include the fact that it's kind of connected to like other parks that are closer to the Cleveland area, and
Right.
other parks that go down into like Canyon and like the Tucson Valley. Right?
Yeah.
So like it's literally right in the middle of what I would call like the middle forested area of Ohio.
Big tree.
And the super fun little note about that is it was actually the ninth most visited national park in the U.S. in 2022, attracting more than 2.9 million visitors, which actually placed it just barely ahead of Glacier National Park, which is huge. We've all heard of that.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And mind you, those numbers are probably exponential because of COVID. So,
We also live in Ohio where the rain's shit over.
So, Ken, what is your very favorite trailhead and why?
Trailhead. Oh,
Or part. It doesn't.
No, don't do them out.
make it more.
I would do the trailhead.
Yeah, there we go.
okay. It can be like that. That's fine. I would say, as far as trailheads go, I almost want to say it's a tie between Deep Lot Quarry
The one my wife is terrified of.
Yeah.
and just escaped me, Brandywine Falls.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's probably the prettiest of them all.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest.
Yeah. I mean, and they both have different connotations to me about it. For me, Brandywine Falls, I remember when Stanford Road was open and you could drive from Brandywine Falls right down into the valley through what is commonly known as Helltown, which is everywhere nowadays. Everyone's talking about the legend all the time.
Township.
They completely missed their opportunity to actually enjoy the urban legend while it was in full swing. Now it's nothing like it used to be, and all the magic is gone, basically. And Deep Lot Quarry, because I fractured my wrist there when I was walking when I was in my early teens.
That's a weird reason to make it a favorite place, Ken. I'm not gonna
It
lie.
is.
Memories.
Okay. Fair.
Yeah, well, it's an old, it's actually 3 old limestone quarries connected into each other at Deep Lot there, dating back to the 1700s, and most of the buildings in Cleveland were built using the quarried limestone from those quarries.
Yeah.
So it's a really fascinating place. It's got a lot of little traces of history, old millstones and old railroad tracks, and all sorts of interesting little things hidden off in the woods that are worth checking out if you feel like exploring and all that. So, and it leads right down to the deep lock itself, which is called Deep Lock because it was the deepest lock on the Ohio and Erie Canal. And for those unfamiliar with canal locks are basically little doors that change the elevation of the water to allow boats to flow through a waterway that changes elevation over a long span of distance.
And ironically, so the one that we're talking about is Civic, where all of these parts are involved is, correct me if I'm wrong, Ken, but the Erie Canal?
The Ohio and Erie Canal.
The Ohio Erie Canal.
Yeah.
Correct.
Built in 1827. It started in 1827, finished in 1832.
Which is quite a while, really.
I mean,
So, as far as, let's just jump right into it. As far as paranormal happenings at Deep Lot Quarry, why do you think the place has such significant paranormal activity? Do you think it is its history? Do you think it is the way that it holds energy in the limestone? Do you think it's a combination of all of it? What kind of stories and history do we have from the quarry that would suggest it be haunted?
surprisingly, there really aren't many tragic stories that I come across that deal with the quarry itself.
Mm-hmm.
But just knowing that it was a limestone quarry where you're wearing like 5 to 10 ton blocks of stone, it was extremely dangerous back in the day. This was all long before we had mechanical equipment, and you were just using ropes and pulleys and logs to lift huge stones. So it was a very dangerous place to live. But actually, not too far away from the lock itself, there's a bridge over the railroad, a railroad bridge over the river. And there was someone who did die on that bridge during construction. So there is that possibility. It just dawned on me now. I hadn't really thought about that in a long time. But there's a crane that fell while they were hoisting up part of the bridge, and it fell directly on a worker and killed him.
Ooh, that's rough. Have you personally had any experiences at that lock?
Not at that lock itself. Further north of there, along the tracks, definitely I had a lot more experience. The whole canal is definitely a creepy place after dark. I will say that for sure.
Yeah.
But most of my experiences have been north of the town of Peninsula itself, or south of the town of Peninsula itself. I haven't really encountered anything in that specific area.
Okay, cool.
So as far as Indigo, let's talk here. So if you start heading north, we're looking at, this is where you would find Deep Lock Quarry. This is where you would find, like, Lonesome Lock is another popular one, especially with ghost hunters. Like, if people look on ghosts in the Cuyahoga Valley, they're going to find Lonesome Lock. This is where you'd find, like, Beaver Falls, things like that. Going south, you'd be looking at, well, no, even north would be Everett Covered Bridge, just a little bit, not much, kind of a spit and stone's throw. South would be like Beaver Marsh, right, Ted?
Yeah, Beaver Marsh, Boatsome, and heading down south into Akron itself, too.
Like San Ron,
yeah,
stuff like that. But most of it goes up north. But like then the irony there is that, like, what people don't realize is that Cuyahoga Valley National Park is actually, it kind of intercedes with like Viaduct Park and like Rocky River Park, which goes all the way up to like Erie, and then going south, it kind of intercedes with like the Tuscarawas, that area. It all intercedes with that national park. It all follows down the Cuyahoga River.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of, it's hard to tell where the park ends. Sometimes the national park ends because there's so many metro parks. There's the county metro, Cleveland Metro Parks. I mean, Summit County Metro Parks, Portage Metro Parks, Stark County Metro Parks, all of that. So it almost blends in. So you'll be going into a metro park without realizing you're leaving the national.
Right.
Right. I think what a lot of people don't realize is there's a lot more woods in National Park that literally goes to the middle of the city in Ohio than you would think there is.
Oh, yeah. And when you're in the center of it all, it doesn't feel like you're anywhere near suburbia at all.
Right.
So I took my way to Owler Pond, which is a place where I grew up in like Goodyear Heights in the middle of Akron.
Yeah.
And I literally took her to the pond section where there's a forest that completely rings the pond. And as you walk back down into the trailhead to the pond itself, like you would literally never believe you're in the middle of Akron.
No. Been there myself.
So the second most interesting place that I want to talk about that we have actually had quite a bit of experiences at would be the Everett Road Covered Bridge. This bridge is actually really awesome. It crosses Furnace Run, correct?
Yes.
So it is the only remaining covered bridge still existing in Summit County. It was built in the 1800s. During that period, there were actually tons of them. There were like a couple thousand of them. But obviously, it's the last of them.
Again, in Summit County.
In Summit County, yes, correct.
Preface.
Prefacing a limit. So it was winter night in 1877 that sort of waiting for that bridge was its paranormal story. But the fun part is that the story of the tragedy that happened there doesn't actually have a goddamn thing to do with that particular bridge, does it, Ken?
Not really, no. It was February of 1877.
77, yeah.
And John Gilson and his wife Hannah We're actually coming down Wheatley Road. Wheatley Road still exists, and it's just north on the creek, or just upstream, I guess you would say, from the bridge itself. And it was one of those typical Februarys in Ohio where you have terrible cold weather, lots of snow, and then all of a sudden you have a thaw, and everything had flooded and washed ice onto Wheatley Road, and they were coming down with their horse-drawn sleigh, and they hit a patch of ice, and it slid the whole sleigh, horses and all, right into the raging creek right there. There just happened to be a young teenage boy out by a nearby barn who heard the commotion and ran over. John Gilson, right before he was sucked under, said his last words, "Save my wife first." And with that, he disappeared. The young man jumped into the water, pulled Hannah out of the water, and rescued her. Gilson himself wasn't found in that area. He was found, I believe it was about 3/4 of a mile downstream in a muddy embankment about a week later from that. But even though I had arguments with his historian about the whole thing, but he said that the bridge was called Centennial Bridge and it was built in 1876, although there's legends in the area that the bridge was built because he had died. But I think it's more than likely it was built in 1876, so it was there when he died. But he lived on Oak Hill Road, so he would have had to cross that bridge in order to get home. So there's a good chance that that could be why people hear a horse-drawn wagon crossing over the bridge, even though he was in a sleigh, not in a horse-drawn wagon. So there's a lot of weird stuff. But I would say the weirdest thing, though, is the pine trees right next to the bridge, where the road makes a sharp turn on Everett Road, used to be at least an acre-sized cemetery. It was Everett Cemetery.
Yeah.
And it was privately owned. It had well over 100 burials in it. And when the land was sold off to someone else, they just abandoned it.
Yeah.
The gravestones were either thrown into the creek, or the flat ones, the uprights, were turned upside down and used as paving stones in someone's garden. So basically the whole cemetery was desecrated by heat.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I want to say it was like the second time that I ever visited the bridge. We were taking photos, and we actually got down into the water because we're crazy. And you can actually see some of the sets. Obviously, the water has worn off. Anything that would be like writing or whatever over the years and years. But yeah, you can actually still see some of those headstones down there stuck into the rocks.
And there's that one photo that I still think is definitely in force.
100%. So this photo, we'll preface this like, okay, so obviously when Mr. Grayson and his wife, when they went into the river, right about the area where the Everett Bridge is right now would have been roughly the area that the water probably would have washed like the horses and he went a little further, but yeah.
So if you're going from Indigo south towards Everett to a bridge and then under it and past it, and to be fair, going south, it immediately curves to the left under the bridge.
Yeah.
That's where we got that photo.
Yeah, so the water would make a curve in the river right next to the bridge. Anyhow, though, so in this photo, which, mind you, this was not digital. This was back in the day before we even had those. So this was a photo. We're taking photos, and one of the photos that got developed, in my opinion, very clearly shows sort of a slightly, I'm not sort of a mist of shadow, but a slightly darker outline.
It's a super fog mist type thing.
Yeah, it 110% to me it looks like a freaking horse standing there in the creek.
You definitely see two distinct legs, that's for sure.
And the head. You can see the head.
And when you find the photo, we will definitely upload it to our Facebook site.
I was thinking about your photo somewhere there.
Somewhere.
I know I have it too.
Did you ever see a ghost apparition, I guess you could say, at Indigo Lake? Essentially looking down the hill going towards the tracks.
I've seen all kinds of interesting things at Indigo. Now, do we want to continue talking about Everett, or we want to jump forward?
No, obviously he's bringing that up. But yeah, we can continue talking about the history.
Give us a second here. What I will say is, first off, with Everett,
We'll talk about it all and just circle around.
Everett is one of the very much places where, like, I've gone there a bunch of times, especially, like, you know, sometimes you stop there on the way to Indigo, sometimes stop there on the way home from Indigo, because coming off the, 21/77 North, it's right up the exit, and it's on the way to Indigo. So sometimes I stop there on the way to Indigo, a lot of times I stop at both,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's on the way home. Everett, I will say, is a very much either it's on that night or it's on that night.
Goes to 50/50 with that one.
Yeah.
There's really no kind of in between. They're like, maybe I feel something here. Either you're like, it's time to get out of here.
Yeah.
Totally, there's no pun
Or
intended.
it's chill.
Yeah.
And that one time when we got that one photo, believe it or not, it was chill that night.
Yeah.
I remember that because I was wearing Jenko jeans back in the late 90s.
Oh my God.
And they were absolutely soaked from carrying people across the creek because, hey, newsflash, folks, it's deeper than the lakes.
Yeah.
And actually, there are other ghosts there worth mentioning. Well, one mainly.
Do it, Ken. I want to hear it.
I know. Well, there is a legend of a little girl that haunts either in or around the little church right up there on the road, heading back toward Riverview Road. I have never been able to iron down the whole story. I've never been able to get in contact with someone who can tell me the whole story. It was really.
So now you're speaking of a story that even I don't know about the valley.
Ken, it sounds like this is a place that we should check out this year.
And then the road between the church and the bridge is haunted by what's best described as, depending on who sees it or when you see it or how it chooses to appear, possibly, either a dark, shadowy shape of a person or someone in a Halloween costume.
So like a dark druid.
Not quite.
That rolls out my theory of what I've seen.
I would say more like when people have seen this as something other than a shadow, it seems like a teenager out trick-or-treating, even though it's not around Halloween.
Well, I have actually seen rather, I don't want to say large, it looks very masculine to me. I have seen a very, very dark shadow of what appears to be a masculine person at not just the bridge where it exits to the back where that road is that's no longer traveled. And then, of course, going up that road just a little bit.
That's Oak Hill.
Oak Hill, yes, thank you. So yeah, I've seen what I think is a guy. Never seen a child though.
I have.
You saw a
Oak
child?
Hill is,
Go ahead, Jerry.
I was going to say, Oak Hill is one of the oldest roads in the area. It was put in place by the Hale family to get to their house. So most of those old roads followed different native trails and all of that. So it probably dates back hundreds of years before that even.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, bro, you said that you've seen a child?
Yeah, sitting on the graveyard.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Now,
That would be where like the little pine tree farm type thing is today.
yeah. Mind you guys, we started visiting the area long before the pine tree forest existed.
Oh, you bet. I did.
I went forest, the pine tree farm nowadays.
Yeah, it
Technically, I was in the area. I was just more a hill farm.
yeah. But yeah, we watched the inception of that pine tree farm or whatever you want to call it.
So what I would like to say before we get too in depth with spirits, ghosts, other things that may or may not be there, we should talk a little bit about the history of the area. And I will lead into this, but I will let Ken talk about it. It's a mixture of, to be fair, it's a mixture of many things.
It's robust.
The canal itself, are kind of Irish, but also was very much prominent in like the Native American, like the Beaver Wars, the trading of the early 1800s.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, you're talking about the valley was always considered a wonderful place. So you're talking about thousands of years of human habitation, going back to some of the early eastern woodland tribes who settled in that area all the way up until it became part of the Western Reserve, and the settlers started moving in the late 1700s, early 1800s. And then you had the scuffles between the natives and the settlers. There were quite a few skirmishes that took place in the area. I know there was even a kidnapping that took place is connected with Mary Campbell Cave in Akron, where a young girl was kidnapped by a tribe and held captive in the cave that now bears your name.
Yeah.
But after that whole battle took place and the natives were forced off of the land and moved on, there were a lot of changes that happened. You had the Industrial Revolution taking place. The canal came in the 1830s, and the town of Everett was then called Johnny Cake. It was named after a time when the river the canal silted up heavily because there was a flood, and Furnace Run sort of caked it in with mud, and a canal boat was trapped there for about a week, and all they had food-wise, provisions-wise, was cornmeal. So they had to survive on what's called Johnny cakes, which is basically cornmeal pancakes. So that's how the town got its name. But then it became Everett when the Valley Railway came in the 1870s, 1880s. It was named after Sylvester T. Everett, who was treasurer of the original Valley Railway that came in there. And then that uprooted a lot of things too. It disturbed a lot of native sites. Even today, there's still a lot of damage that's been done to native sites. So the park doesn't like to talk too much about where certain things are. But there are some burial mounds. There's a fort. There's a lot of different things in that area that if you don't know what you're looking for or at, you wouldn't notice that these are sacred sites in a lot of ways to the early settlers of the area. But a lot of things changed with everything, the Industrial Revolution and all of that. So the whole area has been through a lot of transformations over the years. And even Big Beaver Marsh was a dairy farm at one point, and then it became a junkyard before the park came in and cleaned it all up and brought back the beaver population to take over and reclaim the area.
And in a lot of ways, we should mention that this is part of the lore that is Helltown. This is Boston Township. This is Everett, Boston Peninsula. Like, it all kind of flows together in its own certain way. You know what I mean?
You know what? Well, a lot of that has to stem back to when the park came in the 70s. Through eminent domain, they took over property. People were upset by it. People were displaced. Houses were abandoned. Buildings were abandoned. So between people being rightfully angry for losing property that's been in their families for decades upon centuries, even in some cases, they had all these abandoned places which are perfect for storytelling and coming up with crazy stories to go with why these places are so spooky and abandoned.
Now, to kind of hit back on a little bit of the history, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was the Hopewell Indians who had settled in that area. And I believe, now this is just a rumor, I'm going to see if you can substantiate it all. When you are leaving, let's say you're leaving Everett Road Bridge on, obviously, Everett Road, and you're heading down to the T there where you would take and, turn right to go back to Indigo Lake. Is that not a burial mound that you actually drive over?
Right next to the church, that little hill that you're talking about, that is absolutely a hobo ground.
Yeah, and
it's surrounded by limestone blocks. That's what they used to build up the mound itself. And when settlers came in to build a road there, they didn't care, and they just built it right over it.
That's just the most amazing thing ever. So no wonder that area is, a little sketchy.
Yeah.
So no, that's some shit right there. And then I believe that the same exact area, if you follow those tracks down, not to Indigo Lake, but like halfway is where you're going to find what used to be the old Mount Fort, correct?
Yes, right across from what used to be called Everett Swamp.
Yeah.
It's still a swamp.
Well,
Between me and you, it's still a swamp.
it is, but it's a tiny little swamp.
Yeah.
That's not all I'm saying is, Joe, I want this track's playing time.
Yeah, it's a swamp. I lost the shoe.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Shadowy.
So, yeah, that to me has always been just a very interesting part of the history of the place, is that I think that people lived there a long time, and every bit of their history was literally just erased.
Oh, yeah. And then before that, even the Adena Mound builders were strong in the area, and even underneath the railroad tracks and all of that along that area, they found pottery from the Adena Mound builders, a couple thousand years old. So yeah, it's been very much destroyed in a lot of ways.
So what we should say that is kind of a little bit more popular is, so the Adena Mound builders were the same people that were responsible for like serpent mounds in Ohio.
Yeah.
They also again, we're a nerding podcast. If you follow certain tabletop role-playing games like Vampire the Masquerade, that have a sect of vampires called the Black Hand. The Black Hand was first a sect of Adena Messemen. You will go through, and if you go, I believe it's Raven Rock is one of those, the river that goes through the Serpent Mound. You will still find imprints of black hands along the naturally formed limestone.
Yeah.
So clearly, at least the way we were up here as well.
I do know that there were also several other native tribes throughout history that were up through the arena. Yeah, it was actually the Seneca, which was part of the Iroquois Confederation. The Ottawa moved through there at one point. The Ojibwa moved through there at one point near Brexville. The Mingo tribe, which was literally just a local name for the Seneca. That's what they were called at that time. They hung out there very near Ira. They had a camp near Ira. Gosh. Yeah, so there were quite a few.
Yeah, the Seneca also were settled in the town of Boston, which is where Helltown exists. What is commonly referred to as Helltown.
Yeah.
So that whole town of Boston was basically a Seneca.
Oh, okay.
There's lots of block where we actually originally met, Ken.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I did know that the Ottawa had a camp just north of Boston, but I was actually aware that the Seneca camped out there as well. That's pretty interesting. But yeah, so the Native Americans really have huge influence over a good majority of the valley.
And then, Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were telling me a story. It was actually the Irish indentured servitude that was responsible for building most of the canal itself.
You could say that in a way. Basically, in order to get enough laborers to build the canal and get enough skilled laborers to quarry the stones to build the locks, they imported people from Ireland to do the work, and they paid their passage over here by ship. The problem was basically, instead of getting a normal paycheck, is they were basically working off their debt that they owed for being brought over. So they would be paid every day. They would get a jigger of whiskey. They would get a bowl of beef stew and something like 2 cents. And it was a very pitiful existence. And you had to deal with yellow fever and malaria and all sorts of different illnesses, because this area, especially this entire city of Akron, was one big swamp. So you were battling horrible wilderness conditions and all sorts of disease. And the 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 nice story that we want to believe about the whole thing is that, oh, every few miles they built a cemetery for the poor workers and all that, and this really happened. Nobody could afford a funeral because they were all still in debt, so they literally just, if someone died, they would just dig a trench right there along the towpath, throw them in, say a couple prayers, and keep on going.
Yeah, and pretty much the end of it.
Ken, speaking of which, I have read a couple of stories from you that I would like you to elaborate on somewhat, and I'm sure that it kind of goes to the whole valley. Certain people that I wouldn't even say people, apparitions that you've seen, head of lamps, torches, just walking to the woods, down through the valley, along where the towpath goes.
Yes. Well, one of my favorite haunted places is Lonesome Lock. I sort of revived that legend back when I started everything out around 1999. Been that long.
That's when we started with you.
Yeah. But that's funny because whenever I mentioned the valley, people are like, "Oh, did you hear about Lonesome Lock?" Yeah, because I sort of know. Because I used to be friends with a lot of park rangers, and I was close enough with enough of them that they would share little stories here and there. And one ranger I knew happened to mention one day, it was like, well, obviously you know about Lonesome Lock. What are you talking about? And she said, oh, yeah, that's where this legend is that this woman was murdered and her headless ghost wanders around the lock. I'm like, oh, that sounds like it's right up my alley. So I started investigating it and posting about it. And that's where that whole thing kind of snowballed into the popular location that it is now. But that's where I saw my first ever true apparition, not too far away from there. And one of these days, I need to since I haven't really kept with the times and technology, and I'm used to using old school equipment, I have a video on high 8 tape that I let record just facing south from Lonesome Lock along the trail and the canal. And from my perspective, I saw what looked like a candle or a candlelit lantern floating down the center of the canal itself through the trees that have grown up in its place over the years and all that. And then when I played back the tape later on, it looks like this brilliant light, almost blinding light, floating down the center of the canal itself. But the best part about it is shortly after that, within a couple of minutes, I recorded someone on a bicycle coming down the trail right along where that same man is with a headlight on the front of his bike. So you can tell the difference between this bike lamp and this other light that was floating down.
So it just felt perfectly to help you debunk it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it was definitely not. You could tell that this was absolutely not a bicycle, and it didn't make sense because I was thinking for the longest time, like, well, maybe it's a reflection on the bike. But it's like, what could it have reflected off of?
Right.
Trees are not reflective. The dirt is not reflective. And you would have like a sheet of glass along the entire length of the canal in order to see that light continuously going along at the same rate.
Right. And what is that story that you told me about the people who had, I want to say it was actually Beaver Marsh. I'm pretty sure. When you're walking along the first part of the trail, and it's got that real pretty road that runs right through the trees. You said it used to be an estate off on the one side?
Yeah, it's bigger. Cat and I had actually walked off to the foundation of that estate.
To where it still exists as the foundation?
I didn't know. That was 25 years ago, when he moved into the foundation.
It used to exist at the foundation.
So a rock now.
All right. Yeah, those pine trees were planted by the Carter family. That was their driveway
Nice.
At one point in time. Charles Carter used to be a canal boatman back when the canal was in operation. And he lived in what was the lockkeeper's house right there next to Pancake Lock, which is right right at the entrance to Beaver Marsh.
Mhm.
If you're heading north on the trail. So I found a picture of his house from back in the day. So I've seen that. But his son Darwin, when he became blind later in life, his son Darwin took over the dairy farm that they had there after the canal went out of operation and built a house next to that. So the pine trees in that area sort of separated the two houses from each other. But yes, Charles always hopes that the canal would be revitalized because he missed working on the canal. But then they started working on it in 1905. They were going to renovate it into a recreational canal. But then the flood of 1913 happened and destroyed the entire canal beyond repair. And that was the same year that shortly after, I believe 6 months after that whole flood happened, is when Charles died. And people have reported seeing a man in overalls wandering along that stretch that they believe could be Charles Carter, still trying to either get his way home or see if there's any news up canal.
Yeah, no, I actually have seen a gentleman in what I thought were overalls walking down that same, I still call it a road, but I guess now it's just a path. Yeah, I've seen that as well, actually. Do you remember? Oh gosh, where the hell were we that day when we must have been? I want to say we were at. No, that was Beaver Marsh. No, it would have been Lonesome Lock.
Tell me the story.
Remember the time we all went up there and we went down to walk, and us ladies were kind of hanging out together, and we decided to walk up towards whatever weird little scuffling noise we had heard in the woods, and this like monstrous fucking buck was like nose to nose with me.
That was Lonesome Lock, because kind of like on the bridge that goes across the Cuyahoga River at this point.
Yeah. And the amount of expletives that left the mouths of those ladies was the special, that just all sorts of jokes are made out of.
But you sound like listeners, we actually still have the audios and that.
We need to do it. So yeah, the story behind it is like you hear us going like, what is that? What is that? And like we all go walking up and like we step right into the tree line, and then all you hear is like screaming and cussing and craziness. What actually happened was I came literally within inches of a buck that like absolutely fucking towered above me. He must have been like the fucking king of the forest or something. It was hilarious.
Well, I have my own recording of my own embarrassing moment, too. When I saw my first apparition, right there, just south Lonesome Lock, where the tunnel goes underneath the railroad tracks.
Yes!
I was out with my friend Chet and a friend of his. They had climbed up the embankment onto the railroad tracks and left me down bottom because I don't do heights very well.
Yeah.
And it started out with just hearing somebody running past, and I moved out of the way because people use the trail 24 hours a day. So you will get joggers at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And I moved out of the way. Oh, yeah. And there was nobody there. So creeped me out a little bit. Finally coaxed them down. And then as we were leaving, we were heading north. We went through the tunnel, and I looked back to make sure they were still following us, or following me. And beyond them, I could see it was like straight out of a movie. It was a glowing shape of a man. It was like a foggy shape of a man. He walked down off the hill by the railroad tracks and crossed the towpath trail. And right before he hit the riverside of the trail, he just went out like a light.
That's awesome.
And it terrified me, but I sort of lost the ability to think. And I always laugh about it afterward because I was recording EVPs at the time. But instead, I captured me turning into a valley girl. And so it's just me like, guys, guys, I think, like, we should, like, maybe get out.
Those functions gone.
That's amazing. I love it. That's awesome. So I've got to hear that one, just so you're aware. One day.
It's one of these micro cassettes that I compiled, so I got to find it still.
For a bliss hunter, that's a lot.
Yeah, right. Mountains of potential evidence just laying around the house. So the most interesting place in the park, I think, for us has been Indigo Lake. Throughout the entirety of the times that we have visited the park, that place has just taken on many, 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 many faces. The very, very first time I ever visited was with you, Ken, and I actually saw the apparition of what I thought was a Native American man who had no legs. And it scared the living shit out of me because it was like beside me and I wasn't expecting it. And I hear that man had a name. What did you guys call him?
All right, so we're going to pause for a second. So, Ken, you've heard that part of our story, and once you started to explain, and before Joe and I get into our weirdly more recent substantial discoveries, observations, more than discoveries, right, at Indigo Lake, this was the popular theory at Indigo Lake. And again, there's a lot of history throughout the entire valley, be it this, sect of people and this sect of people, and it was all built into the same kind of thing. So yeah, Ken, go ahead and talk about the original, back in 1998 when we were first checking out Indigo Lake. What was the Native American myths back then?
Oh, goodness. Well, I know there were a lot of really strange stories that it was very mishmash. We didn't quite know too much about the actual history of that area. I know I had seen I felt watched from the woods quite a bit by what I perceived to possibly be some sort of Native American energy. I know there was someone that I know who believed that there was one stone at the top that was connected to ley lines. As far as the natives in the area, I hadn't yet discovered that there may have been like a bit of a battle that had taken place between a group of settlers and a small group of tribespeople in the Pacific area. I didn't really know much about that hill at all at that point. The one thing that I did experience, and I started to think it was somehow Native American, I was out there with Chet once again and one or two other people. We had walked all the way up to the top of the hill, and on our way back, I felt watched from behind me. So we just emerged from the woods and started to get around the bends where you start going down to the lake level. Mm-hmm. And I turned around and I saw these two orange eyes looking at me in the middle of the path. And I thought, maybe it's just my imagination. Maybe I'm just... Turned around, started walking, turned back again, and they're still there. And the darkness is starting to take shape into what looks like a person with glowing orange eyes, standing or walking down the middle of the path. And as I was just transfixed, and I just kept watching, and this figure started walking toward me, not saying anything, not making any sudden movement. And he had both arms down at his sides, and he raised them out straight at either side. And what looked like feathers were hanging off of each of his arms. Some sort of bird costume of some sort. And right at that point, when I was about to tell the guys that I was with about it, they felt like there was something rushing up behind us, and they took off flying down the hill and left me up there at the top of the hill by myself.
Not at all.
I would have loved to stay around and see what happened, but I didn't want to do it alone, so I just followed them down to the bottom of the hill.
Understand.
It's really interesting because we, over the years, have witnessed the vast majority of those things sort of by accident before we even really knew that there were stories behind them. So, for example, the idea of there being, we refer to it as a karm, which is the point.
You'll say some reference at the ley lines.
Yeah, exactly. The stone that you referenced with the ley lines. Now, I've actually found I did a bunch of research and found a really very old map of what they believed were the Earth's natural magnetic lines. Obviously, that would be ley lines.
Yeah.
And I took coordinates and actually traced, and this is God's honest truth. There is actually a convergence of ley lines that exists right there where that card sits.
I can vouch for that.
Yes, it's very, very real. I found and the map was the U.S. Geological Survey people, so it was a real map, not just some shit some crackhead made up. So yeah,
GeoCities.
Yeah.
there is for real a convergence of ley lines right there. And to the best of what I can pinpoint it, not being some sort of a geography major, it does appear to me that those are the exact coordinates where that stone lies.
All right, so I'm going to pause for just a split second here. So Kenny kind of told a little bit of his story with Indigo Lake. What I would like to do is a little bit of roundtable with everybody's first, their first experience with Indigo Lake. Because ironically, I'm going to talk about my next, which kind of follows into the same weird thing, and upon meeting Ken a couple of years later, it kind of made sense in a weird sort of way. So mine was back in, I want to say like 98. And if you followed the trail up the hill, and instead of going into the woods where the trail leads you, you follow the dirt path around back.
Yeah.
All right. And then you follow the path back beyond that, and then there's the kind of high ravine type thing up on the one side, and then there's, and to be fair, when I was there, it was the wildflowers that were growing as tall as a person on the other side. Well, so you couldn't tell what was on the other side. Me and a couple of my friends had gone, and to be fair, I'll be honest with everybody, it was the weekend after we had gone and seen the Blair Witch Project on its opening release weekend.
That was well planned.
So it was the week after, right? We are laying back in the path, and all of a sudden we hear like weird footsteps. Like, so Ken will know what I'm talking about when I said there's the big open field behind the lake. And then you follow the path back. There's a point where it bends kind of to the left, and then it goes back to the right and up through the trees. And you guys will know what I'm talking about, too, because you've been there. But where it first starts to bend towards the left, you're laying right there at the corner. And it was me and a couple of friends of mine, and you kind of start hearing, footsteps, but it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. And our one buddy, Mike, that was with us, is like, hey, stay real still. You'll be a deer might walk out into the path right here, I'm not a hunter. I don't know these things. I'm like, cool. We're just going to hang out right here at the path, right? Rocks right being thrown. They were the size of my fist or bigger. And then we start hearing like these weird, like screaming noises, right? And they were, I mean this in the nicest and most open way when I say it's like Southwestern American dialect, right? Somewhere between Native, Spanish, Mexican. Like I don't know the exact dialects, but it was not English, and it was like screaming, and it was this and that. And a couple of my friends who were Billy badasses, ran off into the woods like chasing. They didn't find anything, and that's what I would say my first experience was. And I would say that. Looking back on it, now that I've done paranormal investigations, and not just ghost hunts, but like this hunt, and that's why, to be fair, that's kind of why I gave a very long preface when I started this podcast. I had branches and giant rocks thrown at me.
Yeah.
I never chased it into the woods. I was chicken shit, I'm not gonna lie, right? Chicken shit. I mean, I'm like, no, not going that way. But that was my first preface, and, since then, I've gone up there. I went up there a couple times fairly immediately afterwards, and that was where I will let you guys further elaborate, but that was where I first met the dogs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In particular, the gray dog.
Yeah.
So you're by far getting a little ahead of yourself with that one because we haven't even started our tales yet.
Well, that's what preface or preface.
So for starters, I definitely really wanted to get out there the idea that, I actually found that map with the ley lines on it. So that is a very, very rare thing. But after that, Ken, you were telling us the story about how people go up there and they kind of feel a little bit almost ambushy.
Yeah.
I had the same, very, very same thing. So when you first go into the woods and then the trail sort of bends around to the left and it goes into a bit thicker part of the woods, actually kind of thicken up a little bit right through there. That's kind of where I felt like there were eyes sort of watching from both sides of the path. I literally felt like I was, being almost stalked. Something, at any moment people were just going to jump out and, I don't know, something bad. Have you had that same feeling up there?
Not up there. Down toward the bottom of the hill, I would say it's more of a feeling. It's your time now.
Right at
Quietly, but
right at the bend as you're coming down the hill?
letting me know. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right when you reach the lower level.
Yep, I know exactly.
Very much a sense of, okay, we're ushering you out now. We're not going to force you out immediately, but we'd like you to make your way to the exit immediately.
Yeah, sort of worn out. You're welcome.
You ain't gonna leave. You gotta get the pass go. Do not collect money. Just get out.
At the top of the hill, I did have a strange experience with my friends Jerry and Gail. One time, it was three of us up there, and we decided to walk all the way to Hale Farm. We was on the other side of the hill.
That's a long walk from Indigo. We've walked.
Yeah. And it was late at night, and we stopped right at the top section of the hill. We made it all the way to the peak in the wooded area at the top. And they were discussing this sort of gas line that was back through there and whether or not it could have been a road at one point or anything like that.
Seen it.
And in my flashlights, I had my flashlight in my hand, and we were just standing around talking, and I picked up my flashlight and moved it just right in between two of them. And one of the freakiest things that happened, and it took a few minutes for me to actually register what I was actually seeing. But in the flashlight beam, I saw a human femur bone standing there between the two of them.
Just the femur bone.
Just the femur bone. Because it was just, the beam was just at the right height that it would hit a bone. And I didn't say anything because I knew Gail was absolutely terrified of the idea of skeletons. And I knew she would have taken off running at top speed all the way back to the car right then and there. So I didn't mention it until the end. But I still don't know what on earth that was or why it happened. But at the bottom of the hill, I did have a weird experience down where the turnaround is near the station by the tracks. Or the path makes a round loop for people who've never been there. And there's a grassy spot in the center of it. I was out there with some friends one night, and
with a back,
and I sort of stopped because I felt weird, and it's hard to describe what I was feeling. But they were asking me, why do I stop? And all I said, I don't know why, but I just have to do this. So I stopped in the middle of the field, or that little plot of grass, put my arms out in front of me, my hands straight, and looked up at the sky. And they freaked out because they felt like there was something rushing from the hill down toward us. So we left. And then it was probably about 2 or 3 months later, I was talking to a friend of mine who happened to be Cherokee. And I just decided, we talk about ghost stories all the time and weird experiences. And I just mentioned to him, this weird thing happens when I was there. And I put my hands out, and he stopped me and he said, were your palms up or down? Like, they were up. He's like, oh, I know what that is. Like, what do you mean what that is? He's like, you were drawing down. What the hell is that? You need to call upon great spirits and all that. I'm like, I didn't know what I was doing. I just did what
came to you?
My brain. Sure, yeah.
No, absolutely love it. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
That is a native thing. That is a pagan thing. That is a Celtic thing. That is a... So, to be fair, and not to call out one religion or the other, it's a pre-Christianity thing.
Yeah. In many contemporary Wiccan traditions, it's definitely very Wiccan, but it actually has its roots in ancient Greece, believe it or not. So yeah, interesting stuff. But
Joe, your first experience.
So you were there obviously many years after we first started going and started having our own experiences there. So
right.
My actual first experience actually happens over 3 days. I want to preface it by saying that
I took him out there a lot.
No, I only went there one day, but it's what led up to me going there that kind of got me ready for that.
That's right.
So, when I first met these two, I was working at the place that I was a meat cutter at the time, which I knew in Walsworth. Teresa started working there, and we kind of met up, talked to her a bit, and her first words to me was like, "You and my husband may get along really well." Hung out with him, and I don't even think we talked about ghost hunting, like, for a long time.
No, it was kind of an accident.
Yes, and I remember this was the first night of kind of the whole Indigo thing.
That's when it started.
I was getting ready to go to their house, and mind you, I got off at 9 o'clock, but normally I go to their house, BS for a little bit, drink a couple beers, just hang out, and then go home. And it was that thing, 11:30, something like that.
It was like 2, and then you ended up staying till 5.
No, it was when I first went to leave, it was about 11:30 midnight.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you ended up like 5.
So, I went to leave the door, right back in there, and I remember we were talking about that a little bit, and I was kind of into it at the time, kind of wanted to get into it and start it. And I was walking out the door, and I don't know who said it, but I remember somebody said the ley lines. And I did that.
I was like, so it is a convention here.
Yeah. And I did that hard stop, and you heard the record go, and I just kind of turned around, and I was like, "Did you say ley lines?" Because at the time I was kind of researching it, I was into it. And I knew some things happen with ley lines and the supernatural and all that. So I'm like, "Did you just," I was like, "All right, we're going to have another conversation, grab another beer, get a cigarette, we're going to go talk." And so we're like, I was there till 5 a.m. and went home that night. And then I remember being at work, and I get a text from Alex saying, "Hey, I'm taking our other friend up there. We'll let you know how it goes." And I'm like, "Oh man, I kind of want to go, but all right, let me know how it goes." When I say I saw 2 grown-ass men walk into my place of business, looking giddy as a schoolgirl, just excited. No. I'm really excited.
One of us was more giddy than the other.
Oh, you were still good. You just heard with always you.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like one of us was more giddy than the other. The other one was maybe a little bit still terrified.
No vision of history, but anyways. So I see them 2 come back, and both of them look so excited. I'm like, "What happened?" And they proceeded to tell me the story of the one friend that we had misidentified himself to the park by saying he was part of a tribe that was there, and he really was.
Ironically, Ojibwe.
Yeah. And the poor, whatever was there, literally punched him in the gut.
Literally, yeah. I watched this happen. He like basically doubled over and like all the wind got knocked out of him. I mean, and you wouldn't see a second person,
right,
like visibly, but it's super like someone just fucking got punched him.
So mind you, this kind of spurred my interest. Like, all right, now I'm curious about the place because it's active, it's reactive. I want to see what this is about. And like I said, I've researched ley lines. I know when there's a convergence, there's a guardian that watches over it because of the power that it gives off and all this other stuff. But when going into Celtic mythology and all that. So I was like, I really want to check out this place. I'll be ready tomorrow. We're going back. And they were like, okay. So I went out there, and I already had in my mind what to say. And I get there, first of all, the place is absolutely gorgeous. If you want to go for a nice nighttime walk or something like that, it is a perfect place to go because it's just peaceful and serene. So we get there, I'm looking around, I'm just caught in all of the beauty of the place. And I just started getting this weird feeling like something's coming out and saying hello.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, all right, this is entertaining, to say the least. So we rank a little bit, and we go by the lake, and we start going up that hill, and just start getting this weird feeling like something was coming out and watching. They brought someone new, so they're coming out to check out who they are. And I was like, oh, this is actually really cool. I'm digging this. So, and I made sure to not do what the other guy did. I didn't want to misidentify myself, so I put my full name out there, said, I am a son of a seventh son. I am coming to observe, not to interrupt. And as soon as I said that, like right where the ley line converged says, the car lit up like it was in a spotlight. And I remember I was saying, like, hey, do you see the car? I'm like, you mean the thing that's lit up like a Christmas tree? No, yes, I do. And then after that, like, it just went full crazy. Like, I started seeing this black dog. I literally felt a dog that wasn't there lick me on my face. Yeah, it went insane that night. So I was like, all right, this is my jam. This is my peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I was hooked after that. So, yeah, that was my first experience. Over 3 days of talking about this to prepare me for the place to get up there. And it was not disappointed me ever since.
So while you're mentioning it, though, I guess we should probably go ahead and tell you that Indigo Lake, and Ken, correct me if I am wrong on this, you know way more about the history of the lake than I do. It actually used to be called Gray's Quarry, and it was a gravel and sand pit.
Yes. Yeah, it was never a natural lake. It was basically, it was a pit mine for gravel and sand that hit an underground spring and ended up flooding. Whether or not there's still equipment in the bottom is sort of rumor and speculation. Is extremely neat.
What I will say is, yeah, what you just touched on, Ken, what I will say is the irony of this place, if you ever look at this lake, you will never imagine this lake is 89 feet deep.
No.
Yeah, at its deepest point, it's said to be 89 feet deep, and it says that and obviously it is closed for swimming. You absolutely cannot swim there, and for good reason, because it is rumored that the underground spring that feeds it has a pretty nasty sort of a toe that can drown in and potentially just drown the shit out of you.
It's glacial fed, so it's ice cold. And me and Ken, this might be myth, and you might know, or it might just be myth. To the best of my knowledge, when I first went out there, I was under the impression that I had heard stories that at least 2 people have drowned in that lake, and they've just never been found.
Yeah.
That I don't know about, but I know that I believe it's the Bath Township Fire Department. It could be a different one. They regularly do rescue drills in that lake.
Yeah,
water rescues.
Yep. And they know there's pretty known too, so.
Yeah, so they would probably know more about it than I do. I don't know of any drownings that took place there, but it's entirely possible.
And to be fair, that was a long time ago, and it might have just been stories back then, you know. That was how it was popular back then. Yeah. What I will say before we move on to any further and more solid paranormal stories or experiences that we've had is what I do want to get off the table is John and I have literally camped in places where what I will say is go ahead and follow the park rules, and it's a very loose rule because you're not supposed to camp in certain places, but as long as you let them know, a lot of times they really don't care. So like Indigo, for instance, if you follow that back that I was talking about that goes to the left and then it views into the woods, you will actually find the woodwood campsites that are normal campground back there.
Yeah. The whole 9 yards.
And upon shooting an email, they were like, hey, cool, thanks for letting us know you're going to be here. Just let me know.
Yeah.
So that place at Indigo, we actually did let them know we were going to go. To be fair, Everett Road Covered Bridge, we just kind of walked down the creek bed and we camped and we didn't tell anybody we were going to be there that time, but, whatever.
Semantics.
But, so, ironically enough, in our camping escapades, don't get me wrong, I would suggest against anybody camping down the Everett Road, creek, river thing.
Just don't.
Because what you don't think about at the time where you're like, hey, you know what? This looks like the right place to camp. It's a water source for all of the animals in the valley.
Yeah.
When I tell you that grown man ghost hunter was afraid to go outside and be by himself at night. Because we literally heard every animal in the valley go to the water and sing.
Yeah. I almost put Barricade there and Melly Duke and you watch me pee.
Go ahead, laugh up, get it funny.
No, I'll still over.
Let people know too that I know everyone thinks of, it's just deer and raccoons and that's it. There are definitely coyotes out there, and coyotes do hunt in packs.
And that got worse.
They're not the friendly little creatures you might think that they are.
No.
There's actually I believe it was I can't remember who did the study. Anyway,
The last we checked,
so
the last it was updated.
study that I heard of, there is one particular pack that it's sort of a mega pack that sort of roams the entire valley, and they sort of split off into individual little packs, but the pack as a whole was over 300 members strong.
Yeah.
Seems accurate.
Yes. So, and it's religious. So one thing that I definitely want to bring, and we didn't say this prior to starting the episode, so I'm just going to say it now, and I know I've said it before. This is a national park.
Yes.
It closes at dark. Sunset, get the fuck out.
Yeah.
You can't be there. No firearms, no alcohol, leash packs only. You need to follow the rules. There aren't people that are going to be out there 24/7 waiting for you to act like a dumb thing. If you trip over a rock and you hurt your ankle, you're stuck. That's the end of it.
Well, I mean, here's one thing, and Ken can confirm this. These are small towns in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, that have a limited budget. So, those same park rangers that cover Indigo Lake, they clock out at 9.
Yeah.
And there's nobody there till the next morning.
I mean, aside from the obvious dangers, though, of, not being able to get care quickly if you need it, this place it's a national reserve. It's home to dozens and dozens, hundreds of species of wildlife, and hundreds and thousands of stories of people who used to live there and have made this place their home, and unfortunately their graves, and you need to respect it. And if you do not have business in the park, stay the fuck out.
Yeah.
But with that said, please, during the day, go take a walk. Enjoy it. It's beautiful.
But I'm going to tell you this. I was scared of a toothbrush.
True.
I'll tell you a story. When we went camping that night, when we let the rangers know to go camping there, I'm very big on hygiene.
And not every.
Right.
Went to brush my teeth before I went to bed, and that pack of coyotes went off. And I froze. I admit, I froze. I had my toothbrush on me. They never attacked, but they were damn close.
That was a greatly summarized version, Joe.
Yeah. Summarized.
So what I will say, to expand a little bit, but still keep it summarized, is about 9 o'clock, we heard this pack of coyotes go off, and they sounded like they were about 1 mile, 2 miles out.
Yeah, they were far.
All right? Sounded like they got a deer. We literally heard a deer bleat. Coyotes went off, went dead silent after about 5 minutes. Around about 11 o'clock, 2 hours after we heard the first go off, ran. We heard another deer bleat. These coyotes go off. They're about half the distance they were away. This is when 3 brainiac, big, bold, aesthetic men decide, you know what? Those sausages that we have, we should go ahead and cook those on now.
Mind you, they were already cooked.
So, we got a fire, we roast these sausages, we eat these things. About 2 hours later, this pack of coyotes goes off. And they sounded like they were in my ear/backyard.
Oh, yeah, they were, I think, maybe 15 feet away from me.
We did check the tracks the next day.
Yeah.
And I hit through a rock and hit them.
Oh, yeah.
Like 10 feet away, like solid.
Yeah. It was a weird night.
So, yeah, if you're camping in the woods and you know that there is a very large coyote pack that hangs out near you, don't fucking grill sausages. just out there in the open.
That already clicked that you didn't have to go.
Come on, guys. Really? That is stupid.
We had a shovel.
No shit.
Terrible papers.
Exactly.
Well, apparently it was to bury the fire with that we didn't bring.
Yeah, to bring confrontation like that's somebody expected us to have. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Fire into on.
No, this is just for wealth, man.
Good old running joke. And a very, very dear friend of ours, Dan, he basically says that you don't know what you're doing when you're camping unless you bring a shovel with you.
Yeah.
So you can bury your fire. I was like, oh, what kind of fucking raging complication you're having, but John's like, that fire get you buried. But no.
Let's have our legs with the campfire.
I read it. Say this, that night we did camp there was entertaining besides the coyotes.
Did you hear it?
Because, well, not just that, but we also heard people talking in the woods. We did actually go somewhere a little bit. We walked up to actually where we normally go, and we did see a lot of dark figures starting in the woods. We saw the dogs.
Alternatively,
So,
I saw the dogs away from the car.
Rice. But, no,
Right?
I did say rice for some reason.
Well,
I'm getting hungry.
what's that do?
No, I'm not even sure what time it was. It had to be late at night, probably about maybe 2 or 3 in the morning. I just got woken up. And that was the first time I got woken up that night. But I just got woken up by this weird sound. It sounded like this didgeridoo being played. And I remember hearing it. It was just one like meow, meow, meow. It was just like
It was like one long note that would last 60 seconds, and then it would like quit for like 30 seconds, and then it would do it again. And I'm like, I can't even call that a train. Like, it's not even a ghost train. I don't know what that is.
nah. But
I'm going to call Ken.
But I remember laying there, and I'm like, "You hear that, guys?" And Alice goes, "Yep." I'm like, "Okay." It's just went like that. And then the second time I was woken up, I think it was when the coyotes came back, because as I'm in the tent laying, I feel like something touched my head, which is then coming through the tent. And I just feel their snout touch my head.
Literally laying against it was hilarious.
I didn't even wake up. I was just like, nope, nope, nope. Yeah. And I think that was after, that was before the experience I had up there with something throwing something at my head.
I would say also, just to preface this whole story, that we are both male and 1980s children. Don't be dumb like us.
Yeah.
Don't be like, just pull blindfolded and everyone does you.
I didn't have a blanket, it was a sleeping bag. But yeah, there's been a couple other instances up there that we've had something happen that I can't quite explain.
I would say the only other story that I would like to touch on a little bit, that follow it a little bit, and then we can just open discuss for like the last 15, 20 minutes, whatever. It is Joe and I go up there and we go hiking a lot. And Joe and I have the type of people that we likes like a path, and we're going to follow it off trail.
To our own detriment.
To our own detriment. And to be fair, so in my intro, this is where the changeling comes in. Because I told my kid this story. He's like, "You see how a changeling did?" He's like, "You found your fairy kingdom." That's what happened. Yeah. So Joe and I one day went up there during, I want to say summer, fall-ish. No, it wasn't fall. It was spring, summer.
Spring, summer, yeah.
Look at me even later.
We're gorgeous day out too.
It's a beautiful day, and we're just like, yep, let's go. And then the day, let's go hiking, let's just go around. That takes us, right? So anybody that's super in tune with the paranormal and the paranormal in a broader scope would know what the thing on it. They would know what fairy rings look like. They would know what doorways look like. Joe and I ladies, all right? We went up there and we see the rings. And we literally followed the fairy path wherever the hell it took us. Which, long and short of the story, we had an interesting place, actually. We got back out, clearly, we're going to do the podcast. We went through probably what a normal Irish descendant would consider about 9 feet 8.
Again, he really summarized this. When we first went there, there's a part as you're walking along the path, and you have a barrack on your right side, and then like just straight up woods on your left. I saw what looked like to be a trail back there. And I said, hey, man, let's just go off trail. Let's just go back here. And Alice being off, she's like, okay. And just kept walking. And might as well. We're sitting there, and you come to a part back there to where it starts dipping, and you get hills and little peaks and valleys and all that. That's not a very big spot. They're kind of rounds out, but it's still a nice little spot. Well, we come across what I would call the Fey Court, because that's how it was set up. It's this little bit of, I think it's actually pretty big. And there's like stones set up that looks like in chairs that the Fae would sit in and all that. And then right at the crest of it, right in the middle, there's like a throne.
Can I show you the next time we're up there? Yeah. This might actually blow your mind. I don't think we've shown you this before.
No.
No, definitely not.
So we saw that.
Something I would remember.
So we saw that and we're like, dude, this is cool. And it was, all right, this is kind of awesome. You know, and we stood there for I think good maybe 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think I may have said it because I screwed up. I saw something out of the corner of my eye. I was like, if you want me to follow you, show me the path.
Yep.
You literally saw like, this path like open it up. Like a real path opened up to me. And I'm like, Alice, you see that? And I heard them say, yeah. And I move on. Yep. And then we went.
So yeah, this is definitely part of the new stuff that we have found up there.
Yes,
stuff that kind of you haven't.
This was about 2 summers ago.
You haven't been with us to experience any of this stuff with us, and I know it's actually been a while since you've been up there in general. Yeah, but this is definitely stuff that we would love to discuss further with you, and of course, see, I want to know what's your take. What's your
I'm
take?
not done telling my story yet.
Let it tell you story. We're good.
So I'm curious.
I'm just the guy that gets interrupted, guys. So, so as we're going through these doorways that are opening up to us, like literally, you raise your hand to one, another one opens up. One ends, another one opens up. We walked a straight line the entire time.
And Ken, to be fair, just to give you an idea of the direction that we felt like we were walking, we felt like we were walking towards the railroad tracks.
No.
Kind of.
No, opposite way.
Well, maybe we started on the other side, but we were walking to we were across the path.
Not this time. Yeah.
You go ahead then.
Not this time. Again, guy that gets interrupted. So we were following this trail, and like I said, we walked a straight line the entire time. We never turned around. We never went right or left. We walked a straight line. Next thing I know, we ended up back on the trail. At the beginning of the trail. Like right when the woods, Ken, you know this, right where the woods begin to start on the trail, that's where we ended up as. We never turned the entire time. To the point to where me and him come out, and I was like, where did we step out at? And I was having to look up and see a cut. I'm like, oh, we're back in the beginning. How the fuck? And I actually had to get my phone out to check to see if we're really actually in the location that I thought. Now, any normal people would just stop and be like, okay, that was entertaining. All right, let's go home. No, we went in again. That is when we crossed the path and went into the other side.
And that's where we found the red tree, right? It was ironic because it was spring, not fall. Just leveling a leaf off the red tree and put it where it was.
We found this clearing, because I remember going up there and smelling lilacs. I'm like, why do I smell lilac? And I looked over and it's just this field of lilacs.
And one giant fucking tree with red leaves in the middle of it. And hopefully one day, Facebook is dumb enough to show me the picture that I posted so that my wife could see it, because I don't know where that picture is anymore.
I
don't know if I can ever find that tree again.
I actually took a panoramic view, because I have an iPhone. Took a panoramic view of the whole entire valley.
Don't fucking do it.
I cannot find that picture to save my life. It is deleted off my phone.
That my phone can do panoramic.
I know. It's just with him.
Me about the iPhone.
That picture is gone. It's not even on my every iPhone I have. It's not on there whatsoever. I cannot find that picture to save my life.
Find that tree again.
So what actually stopped us from going even further, because we saw another doorway open up. This actually stopped us because we're like, I think we went too far. Was the next doorway that opened up actually had stone steps going into a clearing with an actual archway. Like an actual, like, branches spawned to form an archway. And I'm like, I think we've went too far. Like, if we're going further, I don't believe we're getting back out.
So, man.
And mind you, from there to at that point in time, that clearing, it took us almost 2 hours to get out of the woods after.
Wait. I don't know all over the stuff there. I didn't think that big spot. No. So it's funny, I tell my kid that story, right? And I told him, he's like, yeah, one of these days, you're just going to disappear. I was like, bro, let me tell you straight up. If I trip over the wrong pathway and I go through the wrong door and I end up in the Fey realm, I was like, I'm not even looking for the door back because your mom's going to be so mad.
You're done.
But so to be fair, once we found out, I wouldn't say we found our way out of where that red tree was, but we kind of just picked a direction and walked straight from there. We ended up going across a road that I don't know which road it was, and we went into the woods again. And then the next road we came to was Oak Hill Road, and we actually ended up crossing the street right behind Everett over the bridge.
Yeah.
Here's the trick to that. So when we went into the woods, and when we went into the woods on the other side of the path, we were aiming towards the train tracks. So how did from Indigo Lake, like you're aiming towards the train tracks, the relay down over the ravine, how did you end up behind Everett over the bridge, like walk out and cross the bridge?
Right.
That's a good question.
That's an expert opinion.
Expert opinion. That's a phenomenal question.
I don't know, but I do know that a friend of mine back in college who was Wiccan and used to explore the valley with me routinely told me that on the south side of the covered bridge, off in the woods between the bridge and Everett Road, he would regularly see fairies.
Wow, that's amazing, because I was just going to tell you a story about fairies.
Yeah, and he told me all the time, and I never saw anything, so I thought, okay, it's just him being him. But yeah, and now that you mentioned that, it really does sound interesting, because it was right along the creek, heading down south toward Indigo Lake.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's incredible.
That is actually incredible.
Okay. Between now and then, I'm basically with multiple times. But we will make it a point. So the last time that we went out there and literally, I would say, saw fairies physically, or the fae, whatever you want to call them, we decided that we were going to go up in the autumn solstice during the time between times, which for anybody out there that's listening that doesn't know what that is, and it's the time between when the sun goes down, but it's not dark yet.
Twilight.
Otherwise known as dusk.
It's the time between times. It's not dusk yet.
It is the time.
We literally watched fae dancing around, and we literally watched them go into the woods and into the trees. And ironically enough, that was the same night that it got dark real fast. Everything went dead quiet, and something on the way out of the trail from the cairn back to the trailhead at the top of the hill where Indigo Lake is literally screaming Joe's face.
Mm-hmm.
And this is ironically where a weird little bit of maybe Bigfoot lore comes into play. I would not have believed anything like that, because to me, for a long time, I considered that shit white trash TV. No weirdos, whatever. I wouldn't have considered it weird, except there was a very pronounced P on the end of whatever screaming Joe's face. And he said it sounded like it was 5 feet away, and we couldn't see a goddamn thing.
So I want to jump in on that one. I don't know what that was that made that noise. I was there that day, and I heard that as well. And, you could get instead of like an owl squawking or something like that.
It sounded like the owl. It sounded like
but at the end there was a very, very pronounced T sound at the end of this, whatever this thing was that it screamed. We spent the car ride back home, which for us is about 30 to 35 minutes.
All right.
Yeah, I was going through.
Back when we were young and we could stay up all night.
Exactly. I was going through absolutely every single piece of audio that Google would give me with what species
Lives in Ohio.
live in Ohio, what species are in the state in general. I was looking at everything you could think of, from like little tiny field mice noises all the way up to different noises that coyotes can make, raccoons, rabbits, possums, birds, different bird species, just in case it was a specific species. Well, I fucking looked at everything at the time.
High for
And I absolutely could not find a wild animal sound native to Ohio that even came close to recreating that sound.
No, is that the same like that?
There's time between times for fairies. Oh, actually, it's like an hour after that when everything went quiet.
No. I was talking about when that possum came out and scared the shit out of us.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, interesting stuff. I agree with the faith thing. Same night, I was there as well. We got to the top of the path by what we call as the Carn, and where it takes a little bit of a turn to the left there. But if you go right, then it kind of opens up into some woods, and then you can go down the hill into that little patch that's below the hill. A tiny creek runs below exactly. And that's actually where I saw fairies. And that's really difficult for me because it's difficult for me to say I saw fairies because I believe in a lot of things, but most of the things that I believe in are things that aren't super ridiculously hard to believe in.
Ken, if you're me right here, the longer that you study this shit, the more weird shit you will sadly come to believe and see.
At some degree, yes. I don't know.
Right.
I'm still, in a lot of ways, I'm very much, I have to see it for myself to believe it type. In a lot of ways.
Right.
See, the weird part for me is I actually believed in the fae before I believed in ghosts. So
I get that.
It's how we're brought up in our heads. It's true.
Yeah.
So, anyway, to continue with that, what actually happened was, I don't know what was happening, but I was just sort of standing there looking around, and there wasn't anything significant going on. There were no noises in the forest. The guys were taking off to go down into the ravine area where the little creek runs, and I just wandered off through the forest, and I see something that looks like this little light flick, and it just sort of flutters very, very quickly from like one tree to another. And at first I was like, oh, lightning bugs or whatever. Didn't make a damn thing of it. And then I saw again and again, and I took several steps closer to this little patch of trees, and they were, I'm not showing you, I know how crazy this sounds. There were little tiny beings with wings, and when they flew, their wings emitted light.
Just flash, lightning bugs don't walk and disappear in the trees.
They sure the fuck do. And,
Acid they do.
yeah, I wasn't taking nothing, I wasn't drinking nothing, I wasn't smoking nothing. Swear to goodness, I was just 100% sober. And they are very fucking real, folks, and they exist at Indigo Lake.
That's why me and Joe were, while me and Joe were peeing on fairy rings. It's fine.
I accidentally did that. I didn't know. I didn't look down before I went, and all of a sudden I looked down, I'm like, oh, I'm in trouble.
Oh, these three different types of trees look familiar.
Yeah. Man, and I'll have to find that recording, but I do believe I actually caught fairy wings on a recording.
Like fluttering?
Yes. Me and Alex were out there, and I just had the random thought in my head, I'm going to do an EVP. And this time I don't do that in the woods because Lord knows what you're going to catch, and you can never prove it. And there's just a lot of outside noise that you can't do anything with. we were asking some specific questions about things that we knew about that were happening out there, as far as Faye and all that. And mind you, I'm standing still. There's no wind whatsoever, but on the recording, you distinct hear a waves. It's like, oh man, all right, didn't hear it at all. And with my regular ears, but on the recording, I got it.
Right.
So,
which is ironic, because the one thing that I will say about Indigo Lake to anybody that actually wants to go up and check the place out, like, don't bother going up there with your camera. It's not, don't bother going up there with your audio recorder for the most part. In 26 years of going there, I have heard 2 EVPs from that place. Total. Yeah. Period. Never seen a picture that came out from that place. I've only heard 2 EVPs. Like, there goes the place. It's beautiful and it's amazing, and it will show you what you want to see.
yep.
But don't go up there looking for something because you're not going to find it.
No, every time I tried to do that, it's been dead. So, yeah.
So what do you think, man?
I don't know. That's
We're made speechless.
In other words, I think he would say is we need to go up on the time between times and the winter solstice again, or summer solstice and shore.
That year.
Was it all
September?
Okay.
yeah. I need to see what you're talking about and see the places and kind of
Well,
get a feel for it myself.
at the
I
time,
don't know.
sorry, at the time that we did that in the time between times, did you also mention I walked around the Akron counterclockwise 3 times? Yeah. I think that's what set it off. Because I remember reading it in an old script where if you walk around a Lake and Burgess or Akron counterclockwise 3 times, it unlocks certain things. And I did that just by chance to see what would happen. And then all of a sudden I remember standing there watching a fairy do a pirouette. I'm like, what the hell? So,
Yeah, so here's this is a new bit of information that Ken will just now get from us. The second EVP that I've ever heard from up there is one that we actually recorded. And I don't remember what the original question was on the response that got it. So the response that we got from the green man was, my eyes.
yeah, no, that was actually, I was the one who asked the question. Because we started getting a theory on the hierarchy of druidic trees. We started getting a theory because they were all 3 down. So we're like, oh, what would happen if 3 of us touched those trees? What would happen at the time between the times? Again, it was like scientific stuff. It was like, let's trial and error this.
To be fair, when you touch one, basically nothing.
Yeah.
And then you touch one and the second one, mild vibration.
Yes.
So before Joe says exactly what he saw, I want to step back a minute to where, Ken, you said something about somebody seeing a dark shadow that had very vibrant colored eyes, orange eyes.
Yes, I did. They looked basically like if you took 2 hot embers from a fire and held them up.
So now I would like Joe to finish his portion.
So me and Alex did a test first. We touched the 2 trees, and I literally saw like the leaves on the ground vibrate.
We got real low and found a third person.
Yeah, yeah. Like they were trying to like levitate almost. That's the vibration it looked like. So yeah, then we had the third person was like, hey, you go there and touch that one. And mind you, we're kind of spread out. We're far apart, but we're not too far apart to where we couldn't see or hear each other.
Kind of shape, about 70 foot from tree to tree.
Yeah. So I'm standing there and I'm like, all right. And it was really in a bad spot for me because I'm the type of dude I don't like to have my back towards anything that's an open field because I kind of want to see it coming.
We got it back to something.
So I was like, all right, it's just whatever. When we counted down, we all 3 touched the trees at the same time. And I remember feeling that vibration again, but a calmness to it. And all of a sudden I remember hearing something behind me and I turned around and I was like, wait, on the recording, if they can find it, you probably hear me go, oh, fuck. Because I literally saw this figure standing there. Didn't see the rest of it. It was kind of like almost, the only thing I can equate it to is the movie The Predator, his camouflage. Like, that's what it looked like, but 2 red eyes just staring at me. And I'm like, oh, fuck! And I'll admit I was a chicken shit. I took off because that I wasn't prepared to see that. And I got back to where Alex was at, and that's when I was like, dude, did you see that? And you're like, yeah, what'd you see? And that's when you hear the EVP. You don't hear me say anything, but you hear the EVP. My eyes.
It's as clear as a bell. It's clear as a bell.
That is that we went up. And that was the year that we were going up to Indigo basically every weekend.
Yeah.
We went probably a month to a month and a half before we had any more experiences there. It literally just died for like a month and a half.
Yeah.
Dive.
Didn't see anything, didn't hear anything.
No.
It's literally like it took his eyes.
Yeah.
It was interesting. It was very interesting.
And I actually think the thing that was up there is the Green Man, because I've seen it multiple times.
And so, for those who are there, what is the Green Man?
Are you asking me again? Oh, the Green Man is kind of like the protector of the forest. Oh, Celtic. Yeah, I say Celtic, but just a lot of other things just called a different name. It's just the protector of the forest, pretty much. So if you see the face in the tree, or you'll see a lot of them in like gardens, like the picture of the face there, that's the Green Man.
Yeah.
It's just the protector of the wildlife, as in trees and forests and all that.
Yeah, watcher of the woods.
Yeah.
So Dan, we have just given you a mountain of information to unpack. Ken, how do you feel?
He's reading.
A little still digesting. But there's a lot of interesting stuff that sort of ties in over several decades of things crossing over in unusual ways. Very intriguing to say the least.
Oh, I have a lot more stories, but I don't want to overload you right now.
So, I mean, how long did we have my episode?
One thing I think I should point out at some point when you take care of, you know what? Let's cover it. So this fall, probably around September-ish, I would actually say like right after the autumn solstice.
No.
We will have had a whole summer with Ken up there. Ken will get to experience time between times.
Actual summer solstice, not the new.
So yeah, giving him, going off of the old calendar, giving him the autumn solstice, we'll revisit it then so that Ken has an idea of what he's looked at, and he's had enough time to digest his own shit, and
just to be very clear,
we'll do it Indigo 2.0.
I don't expect anybody to believe these stories because they are really solid. But at least
I'm aware of how
at least it gives me the opportunity to prove it.
Ken. Huh.
It's like, I was your mentor. I'm not claiming that shit right now.
Too much. Yeah.
No, actually, to be fair, I know Ken, and Ken is fucking interested right now. Is what Ken.
The beautiful part, though, is that it's perfectly okay to be skeptical, and it's perfectly okay to get your own, see it for yourself. Again, you don't want to stay. Man, yeah, it's a national park, dude. Don't take firearms, don't take drugs, don't take alcohol. Get the heck out after dark. Sunrise and sunset are the hours of the park. Please stay out. It's not okay to go traipsing around in the woods, disturbing nature and potentially injuring yourself if you don't know where you are or what you're doing. Just don't fucking do it.
Like, it's for no other reason than realistically nowadays it's just not safe. Look, I love the place. It feels like a second home to me.
Mm-hmm.
When you are up there at dusk, when the sun starts to go down, and you hear coyotes go off.
Yeah.
It's time to get out.
Yeah.
It's time to go. Like, you're not hanging out anymore.
That coyote pack is big, and they are not afraid of people, and they don't come and attack just one person and one animal. That's not the way it works. They bring a whole friggin' posse, and if you are out there by yourself or there's just one or two people, especially if you have a pet with you like your dog, even on a leash, that
not safe.
You are in fucking trouble. Just done.
Yeah, well, I do want to make one clarification though. The metro parks are generally what close at dusk. The national park itself, unless the location is specifically posted, it's open 24 hours a day.
You're not helping me.
But there's a camera.
The towpath, you can walk the towpath any time of day or night, unless it's closed for a valid reason, because there are places they're repairing for erosion and stuff like that.
Right.
And in the interest of disclosure, I do work for the Scenic Railroad, so that's not connected directly to the national park, but we work closely with the national park, so I do spend a lot of time there and deal with a lot of stuff I shouldn't have to deal with.
Right.
I think the point for me is the only thing I'm trying to say is don't be very badass. But if you're coyotes, just go the fuck home and call it a day. Like that's the case.
Live it for another day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's full of ghosts, but don't get hunted.
Yeah. Unless it's better supernatural.
And for me, it's, and I hate to say this, it's less about breaking the law and more about, please, just respect the place, respect the nature, respect the spirits.
That's all right, really.
Yeah, respect that. Whereas you could end up like the stupid fool that got sucker punched by a ghost. And I'm laughing at you.
That was great.
There's no point in being a ghost, bro. You don't need to act like you're tough and antagonize things and
Exactly.
act like everything is some kind of demonic possession. It's just take a chill pill.
Zach Bibles, it's not even mine.
He's better than Bill Man. He's that person to whom we do not.
Who's your hobby name?
You're not possessed, Zach. You're just an asshole.
God damn it.
In case you didn't know what that sound was, this is going right over Teresa's head. But yeah, no. Overall, I love the experience of the entire place. Like I said, it's peaceful, it's serene. Some other things happen every now and again, but if you're into the paranormal, it's not so weird that freaks you out and you don't want to go back.
Right.
I'm curious.
That's okay. Just walk along the trail and enjoy the nature.
But again, we will be taking Ken up there. We will review the place over the whole last summer. We will come back and see how Ken feels when he gets back.
Yeah.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. I think this is a great idea.
Oh, yeah.
Me too.
I've been itching to get back up there.
That is starting to warm up too, so that's super nice.
Dude, my kid has been bugging me to take him hiking up there. And I was like, so you want to go hiking up there? He's like, no, I want to go find ghosts.
Yeah, he wants to go some.
I was like, you mean you want me to? Okay. Well, that's different.
Well, you just happen to be up there on a night and you see another group up there investigating. Please, stay out of the way. Come on.
Yeah, be
Let's be
respectful.
I don't. I'm not going to say that. Don't stay out. Just go and say hi.
Well, make yourself known so that they're not thinking that like you. Don't be a dick. Don't try to scare people, because that's dumb, and that causes injuries, which then cause bad things, and then all of a sudden the park gets closed and we're all screwed and we can't go. Anyway, people,
Look just like, don't be a douche.
don't be a dick, man. But yeah. Anyway, yeah. Any final words to say, Ken? I would love to hear you promote that book of yours.
Oh, yeah. Well, Weirdly Queer and Queer Hauntings are both available on Amazon. You can get both of them. I know the Weirdly Queer is a bit of a heavy dive, and it covers a lot. But it's 10 years of research put into it. But I'm truly proud of what I've done with it, and it's an eye opener in a lot of ways. It's not all seriousness. There's a lot of crazy stories in there about some famous people you may not realize had any dealings with here. And I love strange research, and I love the out on the way stories, not the typical stories you hear 5,000 times from the same people over and over.
Mm-hmm.
So I always make it a point to try and dig up the stories that are obscure and forgotten. So definitely do that. And yeah, I know we have some plans in April to go to Waverly. I don't know if you mentioned that yet.
I have, yes. I'm excited.
We'll go ahead and share the podcast again, just in case.
Yeah, we're going to this.
This will be my first time in Waverly Hills. But it's been a place I've always been curious about. I tend to shy away from places that have been kind of overexposed by people, but this one is still really interesting to me. I've been finally trying to work on some equipment. I updated some equipment finally to the digital era, so I'm coming into the 20th century finally. And I don't know if the projects that I'm working on are all going to be finished, but one project I am working on is coming along. It may not end up being like what I anticipated it being, but I'm incorporating some old technology with new technology and trying my best to come up with a new communication device that is something that spirits from 100 years ago would be very familiar with. So,
Colored Ranger, yes.
Right.
well, I'll give a little bit of it away. It is an old telegraph key and sounder. So anyone from around the turn of the 20th century who had any familiarity with telegraphs or anything like that can pick it up easily. It's made out of brass. It's good quality. I've gotten most of it restored. It's just down to the wiring now and trying to see if it all functions properly. And then if my plans can work, I'm trying to figure out a way to add an extra sensor layer into it. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to incorporate new technology that much. So we'll see. It could just be sort of an older variation on the unscrewed flashlight tests, because I can adjust the sensitivity of the telegraph key. So there's a lot of different ways I can take this, but it's slowly coming together. So I'm curious to try out ideas that have been floating in my head for years and I've never actually.
So here's the irony. What you just mentioned between you trying to meld the old and the new. This is an idea that I kicked out towards my wife a couple of days ago at best. Is I want to, as a group, sit down with our group and pick a place. And I say we literally just do an old school investigation. No digital anything. We'll get at worst, we'll get the disposable 35mm cameras, all audio tapes, all film. Let's do an old school investigation of somewhere.
Could we make it of a place that we've investigated before with the digital equipment?
It's fine.
That way we get a difference.
It's fine. My idea is just I want to do one old school paranormal investigation.
Yeah, but honest, I mean, we've definitely got it it's not on the calendar yet, but we've got it in the works to go back to Madison here, and really kind of anytime we so desire, and we are there for a long enough haul that we could do both in one evening. So we could definitely do it.
No.
I think I'd like to recess the 2 different evenings. I wouldn't want to do it the same evening.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Well, the good thing about that is I still have a lot of my old equipment, so...
Second, I've still got a high-8 camcorder. I've still got, Joe's got an audio tape recorder. I can get on a cassette recorder because those are fairly cheap.
That still made me mad.
But yeah, so we've got all kinds of weird old stuff. Like I said, when it comes to film cameras, we'll just get, just disposable 35mm.
Well, I still have my Olympus 35mm camera that I started using back in the late 90s. So
Nice.
I really have old Polaroids and 110 sitting on my bookshelf right now.
Yeah.
I just don't know if I can find film for it. We'll find out.
And I just sent the 2 of you over a picture of the current state of the device in the home.
But I just saw that.
Rock on. So I want to go ahead and just let you all know that I am going to be posting on our Facebook site for No Last Paranormal. I'll be posting a link to be able to pick up Ken's book, past and present. I'm going to rub it in that I have autographed copies of all of them. The writing style is phenomenal, and if you like anything paranormal, obviously you're going to want to pick these up because I absolutely love your writing style. I love it. It's phenomenal. I love your way with words. I love your way of storytelling. You're probably one of my favorite authors, Steve.
Wow.
And then, of course, then we're adding the paranormal. So even just starting off with the Cuyahoga Valley one, you know, I love it. I love it. So we'll put the link in there to make sure when you guys can pick up one of these books, you can actually even help support Ken and his future weddings, and even this project that he's got going on right now on his website, which would become, it's basically the equivalent of like a Patreon member. So I will put started that as well. So if you love him as much as we do and want to see him continue to do other things for the paranormal, you can help support these projects so that he can actually afford to create these awesome little things.
That said, I believe Ken has thrown out his information now, but you link to our socials. We'll go ahead and wrap this up because it's 2 hours and 5 minutes. This is our biggest episode.
Wow, guys, I'm sorry that I've been not sorry. So,
Sorry, not sorry.
You can find us on Facebook at No Last Paranormal. But I always want to hear your stories, your comments, your questions, or just shoot shit with you. You can message me at nolastparanormal@gmail.com. And of course, you can always find us on X at No Last Ghosts. Definitely want to hear from you. Yeah, I so wish sharing your guys' story. So come on, keep sending them. So we did get the first story, and obviously you guys heard that the first story that was shared with us. I am putting it into proper format to be able to deliver it to you guys. But the point to it is, he won a hoodie, an Everett's Paranormal hoodie that is not even in plate production yet. So he's waiting for it for a few minutes.
Yep, it's on order. We have not.
I don't even have.
I don't have a hoodie. I don't have my hoodie, but we're going to send somebody one. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Congrats.
Family, we love you. And remember, don't fuck with the Baba Yaga.
You like it.